I have to admit, this isn't my best lighting. Also, I can't believe I looked like this at work all day, but we're gonna live with it. We're gonna live with it. Because I have to make this video. I want to document this better this year. I was gonna do this last week when the applications opened, but I forgot. I didn't forget. Things got in the way. I knew I didn't do it, but this will be my second year applying to the JET program, 2022. And I can't tell if I'm more nervous or more prepared than last time. I'm very nervous. I guess, well, I mean, that kind of answers it, but I think I'm more nervous over the fact that last year I made it all the way through until I got waitlisted. And this year, there's no guarantee of me even making it to the interview rounds. And so, like, there's part of me that wants to submit the exact same application, exact same essay and everything, and hope for the same outcome, but there's no guarantee of that either. I mean, it's a group of people, so, and it's all opinion-based, you know. You turn in your application, someone reads it and decides if yes or no. And so, like, even though if I were to ever submit the same application again that I did last year, there's no guarantee I'd have the same outcome. And that's kind of scary. That is kind of scary. And I don't know. And I sat in on an informational session last night and asked a couple questions about that. And they said, you know, you should be changing your application. But I mean, a lot of the credentials are going to stay the same because, like, I still have those credentials. And so it's more or less of whatever I say to sell myself, like, and how I describe all those things that I am certified in or have experience with. Selling myself, and I'm not very good at it. I'm not very good at doing something like that. But I do know that I want to redo my essay because I very quickly did it last year. And I want to have a more mature essay, and if that's the thing that breaks me, then that's the thing that breaks me. If I think I improved it and I don't get past the round, I've shown myself that I think I've had growth. You know, there are people who are teachers who don't get through in order to teach, and there are people who've never taught a day in their life that get through and actually go over. It's just showing you have what it takes to be a teacher, and then the interview is them thinking if your personality is the right fit. And it's very daunting. It's very daunting. But I do want to redo my essay because I want to show that I've grown, and there's just things I want to word better. And it's so funny because they're like, you know, you shouldn't have more than 3 years in your application. And I printed out my application last year when I submitted it, and I was looking at it as I was refilling things out, and I found 4 errors on one page, and I'm like, this should have ixnayed me immediately. I even had people read it over. I had my roommate from college, my friend Laura, she was an English major, and I had her read through it, and she even missed stuff like that. I had her read through the entire application, and I laugh because I'm like, well, if I wasn't ixnayed over too many spelling and grammar errors, then changing my essay shouldn't matter, right? I still want to keep the, something I'm very interested in is the agricultural aspect of Japan, since I grew up on a farm my whole life, in the countryside my whole life. And I do want to keep that in there because that is something I'm interested about. So I do want to keep that in there. And I think that is something that would make me stand out. I talked to a previous jet and she said, you know, I think that's something they would be interested in because I don't think very many people have that reason. And that's something to set you apart from everyone else. And I'm hoping a lot of other people don't do that, but if they do, that's wonderful, you know. Where it's an exchange, you know, you go over there for a job, but you come back with so many opportunities. And I hope, I like, you know, if I end up in a city, I end up in a city, but I'd really like to, like, one of the ladies that was in the info session last night, she got a farm or rice field, and I just think that'd be the coolest thing ever to do. But maybe that's just me, but I don't know. I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous. I will ramble through this whole video. I think something I've got to work on for this time around, though, is being confident in myself. You know, we're not allowed to talk about what we get asked in our interviews and all of that, but I do remember answers that after last year we were on Zoom, last year when I closed my laptop, that I was just like, that's what's going to be what breaks me. Like that's going to be the answer that puts the nail in the coffin for me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't score higher. And I'm aware of that. And I've been thinking about, you know, I probably will never get asked certain questions ever again if I applied dozens of times. But I want to figure out how to answer them correctly just for myself. I'm a little worried, though, that, you know, you don't need language for this. But with my history with anxiety, I feel like they're going to focus on, if you want to be in a rural area, people aren't going to speak English. What's that going to do to you? And, you know, when I was in Germany, I didn't speak perfect German. I mean, I knew a basis of it. I think people give me more credit than what I actually had for language knowledge. You know, I could break apart words and stuff. Like, you know, if you hand me a paragraph, I'd be able to pick out words and kind of piece together what was happening, but I couldn't hold a conversation with people. I could not hold a whole conversation with people outside of like, hello, my name is, I like this, I am this many years old kind of thing. But I do know that I learned more by going over to Germany than I did in a classroom. And my German teacher was great, don't get me wrong. She was wonderful, and I would have never learned anything if it wasn't for her. But there is no replacement for experience. Like, you know, you can't replace experience as a learning opportunity. I mean, reading, you can always make reading into an audiobook and an audiobook or into a movie, but hands-on experience is something you can't replicate. And so I think if I were to learn the language, I would need to learn it hands-on. And I think being in a rural community is the best way possible. If you live in Tokyo or Kyoto or something, Osaka, they have so many opportunities for English there and people who know English. And other foreigners, meaning United States, English speakers, all that. You go in the countryside, you're forced. you're forced to figure things out. You're forced to learn the language. You don't get those cop-outs as easily. But there will be people around who speak English, of course, the partner teacher and everything. And I hope I can find a way to word that if I'm ever asked that question, if I make it to the interview round this year. Which I really hope I do. Even if, again, this year I don't make it through, I really hope I can make it to the interview round, because I think that just gives me such great experience with not only like just applying to jobs, but interacting with people from other countries. And when am I ever going to get the opportunity to interview with someone again from Japan, if not with this program? But it's a very time-consuming process. I've spent 2 or 3 days working on my application already. And I even have everything from last year. I have all the documents. I have all the paragraphs and information that I needed last year. It's a little different, just slightly edited different. But I mean, I have everything except for my medical release form, which has to be done because I have a new doctor. I have all my transcripts, diploma, everything. I have everything on my computer in a file called JET. So like, I don't have to scramble around like I did last year and submit it at like 3 in the morning our time, like 2 hours before it was due Hawaii time. Or whenever it was last year, I don't remember. Oh no, last year I submitted it right after midnight our time, but it was still open until 3 a.m. our time because it was closing on Hawaii time. And I remember last year I was freaking out to my friend Laura, and I was like, do I put today's date? I got to put a timestamp on it. I got to put a day stamp on it. I'm like, do I put today's date, like midnight after midnight, or do I put yesterday's date because it's technically supposed to be due and I don't want to get ixnayed for it? And I ended up putting the day after it was due, but I still turned it in on time because otherwise it wouldn't have submitted it and or accepted it, and I got lucky. Another thing I'm kind of worried about is I really want to use the same references as last year because I feel like those 2 individuals will give me the best reference as possible. But I'm a little nervous because one of those people I haven't seen in over 2 years. But they have always been supportive of me in everything I do and willing to be a reference for me for countless jobs that I never got. But I'm certain that he will 100% be willing. He was with me on this whole journey last year. I really hope that he's still willing to do that for me because I really think he knows me better than any other supervisor or anything that I've ever had. The other person, I'm not even concerned. They will 100% be a reference for me. That's not even a worry of mine. I can't imagine her saying no. But the thing is, like, you have to send them this through an email and they get sent to a portal and fill it out. So I never have any idea about what they say about me. And it eats my brain alive. It eats my brain alive, wondering what they say. But at the same time, I don't want to know because we're not supposed to know. I mean, I'm guessing other people talk to their references and know, but it's probably best if I don't know. I think it'll help my mind not run as much with the whole process. But November 12th is the day that I have to have it submitted by, and part of me wants to wait until the last minute. Just in case I get any last minute sparks, but part of me is like, no, you're going to submit it ahead of time this year. You waited way too last minute last year. And if you get done, you get it over with, then it's just a waiting game. It's not worrying, it's waiting. I mean, it's a little bit of worrying, but then we'll hopefully find out if we get interviews or not in December. And interviews will be January, February, and results, I'm not going to do early placement, but results will be, if I'm not doing early placement, early April. Do I really know? April, let's just say April. Last year, I don't think we got our results until May. They kept having to push things off, COVID, you know, all that. I think it's going to be early April. I think what they said is early April. Then if you get past that, you have orientation in June. And then you leave in July and August. The second group leaves in August, but I wouldn't be in the second group. I would be with Chicago in the first group. This is something I have looked forward to for years. Since my junior year of college. This will be the 4th year now that I have been dreaming about going on this program. I've met 2 individuals who have gone, one back in the 80s, like 2 or 3 years after it started, I think, and one who recently got back within the last 2 years, right before COVID, actually, the year with COVID. And I've interacted with one individual, and I think they might still be on it, but I'm not certain. But very briefly with them. But it's something I'm still very excited about 4 years later. And there's very few things that I have been excited about after 4 years. And this is one of them. And I really hope I make it. You know, I don't, you know, keep moving forward with life. If I get rejected for interviews, I'll know in December I can get a job, full-time job, not this part-time thing. You know, I couldn't, since I was waitlisted, I couldn't get a contracted position because if I break my contract, I lose my license, and that's kind of like the whole thing. Like, I'm a teacher, and then if I don't have my license, I mean, again, you don't have to be a teacher, but that's a big part of my application. I guess find a teaching job for next year. That way, if I wanted to apply a 3rd time, I could, you know, fit in the timeline. If I get waitlisted, that I don't know if I'll take it this time around, because waitlisting is just kind of a lot of waiting and uncertainty and getting up and leaving in the middle of everything. So like, you can't have rent on an apartment, you can't have contracted positions. So I don't know. And I have time to ask the embassy questions and stuff, but I really hope this year is my year. I really hope something good has come out of these last 2 years with everything that has been going on in my life and COVID. But you can never predict the future. And I could apply 20 times in a row and never get in, and I could get in this time. You just never know. It's all based on the people who look at your application and who interview you and their insights of you, and if they have enough spots. And it's all just circumstantial. And that's kind of the hardest part of it all, because you can never predict the outcome, no matter what you do. But then at the same time, it's exciting because you can never predict the outcome. So even though you may think something's really weak, someone else may think it's really strong. And you never know. And I just want to make sure I document it better this year. You know, even if I never go over, I want to remember this experience, remember this excitement, remember this joy of this whole application process. I wish I did last year. I wish I had my reaction to the interview last year, because I sobbed, I cried, I called my friend Amelia immediately. Like, I was freaking out because I honestly thought I wasn't going to make the interviews. And it was a very exciting thing for me because, you know, there's thousands of people that apply, and they have to keep cutting down numbers more and more and more until they get their, I don't know, there's not an exact number. I'm going to say top 200 people to go over. And just in case this is the year, I want to have documentation of that. And I know there's some people that I am telling that I am doing this, but I don't know how many people I'm going to tell this year. Because last year when I told people I got waitlisted, they were like, well, that's just kind of like not getting it, right? And it was very discouraging. You know, in a way, yes, I didn't get it, but there was still opportunity to be able to go over. Where if I was flat out rejected, that would be a different story. So clearly my efforts last year added up to something, because they thought I was good enough to get waitlisted. So if someone else dropped, I could go. But not everyone saw it the same way. And I want to remember myself as the individual who's excited for this and not the one who was discouraged because other people told me I should be. So here's to 2022. We'll see what it holds.